Welcome, everyone. We are glad you are here with us again to talk all about AI, artificial intelligence, how we can utilize it in a safe way, how we can make sure our students are safe when they're utilizing AI, and also how we can leverage AI because there's a lot of great resources and things that we can do as well. So as always, glad you all are here. If you want to drop a note in the chat, introduce yourself, let us know how you utilize AI in your daily life. While we're waiting for some responses, my colleague Christina, I'm going to ask Christina, how do you use AI in your daily life?
Oh my gosh. To be honest, it's dinner conversations with my students on what are the benefits and what are the concerns of AI, right? Because I've got multiple ages at home, and so thinking about how are they learning how to best engage and interact with AI, but also not take it for 100% face value. You got to look through it. You've got to be with a critical lens. Um, Cite your resources. You've got to fact check. Don't take anything that it's just, yep, this is 100% true. You've got to still do the legwork.
I
So,
love that. I love that you're working with your own kids to make sure that they are aware of how to make sure we're being critical thinkers and such. And also, we want to think about what's happening with our data? How are we keeping our kids safe and that sort of thing, right? And so this is, of course, our series on AI based on our AI guidance, learning with AI, learning about AI. And so we have these going on through the year, focusing on a different portion of the guidance as we move forward. And so if you haven't checked this out, certainly check out the AI guidance. We have a new resource kit there as well. And don't worry, if you don't have time to write down the bit.ly or if you're on the phone and you can't see it, it's okay because all registrants will receive a copy of this slide deck, so you'll be able to access those later. The resource kit has some examples of what a county office and what a district are doing with AI, but of course, we are collecting more and more examples all the time, and we'd love to hear from you as well. My name is Catherine Goyette. I am the Computer Science Coordinator for California's Department of Ed, and I'm joined by my colleague, Dr. Christina Mattis, who is the Ed Tech and Digital Equity Broadband Coordinator. That is a long title. I love it.
nobody seems, it's like, what's the umbrella catchphrase here to cover it all?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we are so glad to be here with you today, and we're really thinking about safety. How can, when we are utilizing it as educators, when our students are utilizing it, how can we just make sure that we are safe and being critical consumers as we are utilizing it? We, of course, know that there are data privacy laws for our students that we have to abide by. And we also know that both the parents and students are concerned about privacy and are concerned about data security. And so this is definitely something we wanted to focus on. As always, we brought in some speakers from industry, from nonprofit, from schools, districts. So we always have great speakers, and we're excited to have them speak here in a moment. Um, here are some. This is from the resource kit, talking a little bit about safety and guidelines for AI use. Again, you're going to have access to these slides, and so you can check those out later. And I think, yes, what I'm going to do now is I am going to. Oh, actually, Christina, you had something you wanted to add in about a privacy concern with something our students might be using?
Oh my gosh. Well, as we segue into introducing our incredible panelists, and I'm pretty certain that someone's going to mention this at some point, but as we're all scrolling through our social media feeds, we've seen an uptick recently with that Roblox privacy concern where there was somebody who was communicating with a child online, and it just escalated to what was thought to be something innocent by the child, but in fact, it was an adult predator on this very popular game. And I think it's definitely worthwhile of a reminder for all of us that whether we are in the classroom with our students or at home with our children, we have to keep reminding ourselves of what it means to be safe and responsible online, that you cannot share personal, identifiable information on any platform. We want to have fun out there. We want to engage socially with people, but we have to be critical and mindful. Do not share personal information. So I'm sure that's going to come up in our conversations today, but teeing it up for sure that it is a concern that we have to balance out there.
Yes, thank you for that, Christina. And I will say that in California, both in our governor's generative AI report that had come out, as well as our department guidance, we do certainly want to teach kids and teach our employees about safety, but we're not saying don't use it. Right? So we do want to make sure that we prepare our students and our employees to be utilizing these tools if that's going to help them. But we're having this today because we want to make sure that we're doing it safely as well. So I'm so excited that we have Karam, excuse me, from, oh my gosh, I even like wrote it down phonetically, apologize. From Microsoft, if you want to introduce yourself, and this was recorded, so everyone's gonna catch that. So yeah, if you want to introduce yourself, that would be awesome, and share with us some information here, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Hey, thank you so much, Catherine, for the warm introduction, and so nice to be able to meet with all of the participants here. Karam Tasco, based in the San Diego area. I am a modern workplace specialist with Microsoft, and I support education. So I've got K-12s and higher ed throughout the West Coast out towards Hawaii. And I spend the bulk of my day talking about some of the topics that you shared here, and that's data security, privacy labeling, all the things that are coming to the forefront as we start to democratize AI and expand it to not only faculty and educators, but also to our students. We want to make sure that they're using these products safely. And I'm going to share a little bit about how Microsoft does that. And if there's anything that you'd like to discuss further, we'll have a call to action at the end of my presentation where you can get the contact information for the individuals that are covering and supporting your accounts. Catherine, I will ask that you keep me honest. I have been known to go a little long. So if it looks like I'm creeping into some other time, just go ahead and say, hey, Karan, we're kind of bumping up against another speaker. And
Okay, no problem, Karam. If
any
you
offense
get
to
on your
that at all.
soapbox, you get excited. I'll let you know. Thanks so much.
So everyone's familiar with Gen AI by now. I'm sure that all of the users are leveraging some type of Gen AI tool that has access to large language models, and you're using that hopefully to improve your life, to help make your job easier, to get some time back, unleash some creative juices, and most importantly, help educate our children. At Microsoft, we use a Gen AI product known as Copilot. Copilot is an umbrella term. Underneath Copilot, we've got multiple Copilots, but they all are based off of the same principle. We leverage these large language models that are primarily OpenAI, but we have access to other large language models as well. So Microsoft is about a 40% investor in OpenAI. We've helped them develop their LLMs. Again, we use their LLMs and we use other LLMs as well to feed the data that your chatbots are using as you interact with them. Copilot, which is the chatbot that we most frequently talk about, you can access it in several different places. And when you access that, the great thing about Copilot is we've got some built-in security features that are going to ensure that your data is private, that we're not leveraging your data to train any large language models. Karam, what do you mean by that? Sure, I'll tell you. Let's say that you're responding to an RFP, or you want to create an RFP. Your district needs some new devices, or you are a technology provider and you want to respond to an RFP. So naturally, you're going to go to one of these Gen AI tools, maybe a ChatGPT, maybe a Google Gemini. There's a whole host of them that you can get off market right now. And you start uploading data and you start asking the chatbot to respond to questions just so that you can expedite filling out this information. Well, many of these tools, particularly if you're using the free version or the version at no cost, you're exposing yourself and your organization to a lot of risk. That data more than likely is going to be shot up to the cloud and added to the large language model. So maybe a year from now, maybe 6 months from now, maybe 5 years from now, somebody is asking a prompt to one of these chatbots on an RFP similar to the one that you asked 5 years previously. Well, there's a high likelihood that that data could be used for these new responses. So we're encouraging our customers, particularly those that have access to Copilot. And let me say, if you have a M365 subscription, whether A3 or A5, if you're using PowerPoint or Word or Microsoft tenant products, then you more than likely have access to Copilot. And you may just need to ask your IT department to enable it because it does come included with a base subscription. Start using Copilot, and here's why. The chat data is not saved. So your chat prompts and your responses are not saved by Microsoft. So me as the senior model workplace specialist, I can't find out what Catherine's been prompting about. I can't find out what Jamie's been prompting about. No eyes on access. No one at Microsoft will be able to view your data. And again, and most importantly, that data is not being used to train models. Why Copilot? It's powerful and protective. Again, you've got access to powerful AI models. So as OpenAI releases a new model, most recently you had the 4.0 release, we incorporate those into our ability to use those models within our chatbots. Transparent and current. Citations are provided for each response. And I believe it was Catherine or Christina earlier that said you need to ensure that you're proofreading any responses that you're getting from these chatbots, because sometimes they will give you, let's say, less than factual information. There was a highly publicized instance where an attorney had delivered some briefings to a judge, and the responses were all fabricated by one of the, I won't mention the competitor, it wasn't Microsoft, but one of our competitors' Gen AI tools, and the AI had just totally made up all these case references. So you got to reference and verify everything that you're receiving. And most importantly, with Copilot, you're always going to get commercial data protection. And I'll show you what that looks like. Within Copilot, earlier that we've got several different Copilots within the Copilot umbrella. We've got the Copilot, which is the chat version that everyone here that's using Microsoft or has a Microsoft account would have access to. But where we really unlock some power with the chat GPTs, with the chatbots, is going to be our Copilot for M365. And I'll share a little bit about why that's impactful. When you're using Copilot on the web, and you could access it, copilot.microsoft.com, always look for the little shield up here in the top right-hand corner. This shield is going to let you know that you're protected. If you see this, that means that commercial data protection has been enabled. So again, there's going to be no visibility to the prompts or what you're receiving from your prompt. And I've got a link here to documents on how to access Copilot. If you've got your phones handy, go ahead and scan this barcode really quick. This is going to be able, you're going to be able to download Copilot on your mobile device. I always encourage all of my customers, start on your mobile devices as you're getting up to speed with these new tools. And again, quickly just sharing your eligibility. Everyone has access to this now. Whether or not your IT department has enabled it, that's a separate discussion. But always feel free to reach out to your Microsoft account executive who has joined our call, Raisha. And we also have our account technology strategist, Vipul, which should have joined as well. Now, I'm going to share a few more things, Catherine, before you give me the boot or give me the big hook to pull me off stage. And that's going to be the Copilot for M365, the art of Copilot prompting. I want to give you some tips on how to best prompt within Copilot. What we typically find is that end users will not use these tools because they're unable to get the data out that they like. The prompts are simply how you ask Copilot to do something for you, creating, summarizing, editing, transforming. And think about prompting how you would have a conversation with someone next to you. You want to use plain but clear language and providing context for what you would like assistance with. And just a few quick tips right here. You want to tell Copilot what you need. So if you want to learn about projects and concepts, you want to give it a simple prompt here. What is Project X and who are the stakeholders working on it? The really neat thing about Copilot for M365 is we're able to access what's known as your graph. So anywhere that you have data, that's your OneDrive, that's your SharePoint, that's your Teams chats, that's even your Outlook. Well, Copilot can then incorporate all of that data into your prompt responses. So now you're able to reference those documents with your chats. That's one of the features that some of my competitors can't do. And it's one that we're most proud of. This document will be shared. So if I'm running through it really quickly, don't worry, you'll have access to it. I'll make sure that Catherine gets it out to all of the users. Oh, excuse me, all of the attendees. I love this slide right here. And this really is where I drive the impact of how to best prompt. And for anyone that's having difficulty prompting, if you follow this recipe right here, you'll be golden. To get the best response, it's important to focus on some key elements when phrasing your Copilot prompts. Follow this, and I promise you, you'll be a prompt engineer in no time. So always give your prompt a goal. What response do you want from Copilot? So generate 3 to 5 bullet points. That's going to be your goal. We're telling Copilot what we want it to. Give it some context. That's going to be next after the goal. Why do you need this and who is involved? So we would continue with the prompt to prepare for a meeting with a client to discuss phase 3 brand campaign. This is where I was telling you with Copilot for M365, that's amazing, that no one else can do on the market. And this is not a sales call, just telling you about the technology. Focus on email and team chats since June. So because you're using Copilot for M365, because Copilot has access to your graph, which is all of the data and content that you as a user have access to, you can reference these documents. So when you say focus on email and team chats since June, Copilot can now go out to your Outlook and it can go out to your teams and go back to June and focus on any data or any content since that point in time. And finally, you give it expectations. Please use simple language so I can get up to speed quickly. If you follow this recipe, you'll be prompting like pros in no time. And really quick, I just want to get to our call to action slide. I've got some great stuff in here, but Catherine's giving me that stare. I can tell it's time to move to another attendee. So let me bring up this call to action really quick. Aha. These are going to be your points of contact. Raisha Smith, your account executive, and Vipul Biala, your technology strategist. If you scan this barcode, you're going to be able to fill out some quick information. You'll be able to get in touch with both of these amazing people. Microsoft's going to send you some free swag. Just kidding. But go ahead and scan this barcode, and we would love to touch bases with you. Whatever the school district, whatever your role or your capacity is, we are here to help you along this Gen AI journey.
Thank you so much, Karam. I really appreciate the fact that I think a lot of people aren't aware. A lot of teachers, they say, "Oh, I'm going to use ChatGPT. I'm going to use these different Gen AI tools that are free that are out there," and they don't realize that their data is being utilized, right? So I appreciate that that companies like Microsoft and others have created these safer spaces, so to speak. But the next thing that I want to think about is how do we teach our teachers and our students about these issues. And so our next speaker is going to show us how to do that and show us some amazing resources, because we need to make sure that our teachers can understand this and that they know not to go, even though they're adults. We don't want them putting some student information or their own personal information into these systems. So Jamie, we'd love to hear from you. Jamie from Common Sense, if you want to introduce yourself, share some slides, and let's hear what resources you've got for us.
All right, lots of love, Catherine. Appreciate your time, and Karam, thank you for sharing everything about Copilot. It looks like some of you have a smile on your face on this Wednesday afternoon, so thank you very much, Alan. I see that smile boasting up, and so thank you all for being alive today. My name is Jamie Nunez. I'm hoping here we can spend just a short time really thinking about how AI guidelines are then adopted in both the school setting as well as a district setting. Let me sort of just share a few things with you. One is we know that FERPA, as much as we'd like to profess that it's actually a be-all protective for our students, it hasn't been amended since 2013, right? And we know that I think PlayStation 4 was at that time. So it's a policy that we are attempting to sort of use and restrict for AI use. But what we really need to be sort of asking ourselves is, what are the issues? What are some of the ways in which we can actually level set with our educators to understand how to adopt some of these guidelines in a safe manner? So let me briefly tell you what I do. I help to support school districts across 18 states in the western half of the US. Myself and my counterpart, who many of you I think know, Sue Thoughts, shout out to her. She and I help support the state of California in addressing, amongst other things, AI. Let's get into it just so you all are aware. Like, if I'm in your shoes, depending on your role, the first thing I'd want to sort of take a look at is what challenges or where my hiccups are as I'm thinking about adopting AI safety guidelines for my classroom or for my district. The first really is there's quite a bit of assumptions that we continue to make about students misusing AI. And I would encourage you to have a needs assessment to really understand and to vet how AI is actually being used amongst your community. I'll share you some resources and some research in a second. The second really is about making sure that we're actually in alignment with what the industry trends are doing. You might be thinking like, Jamie, I don't even have time to drink coffee. You jerk, like, how can I even follow like all the trends that are happening every 5 minutes? But the hope here is not to be in line with the trends, but to understand where AI is actually moving and how it's actually impacting the school. And so I'll share sort of ways that you can do that very briefly. And then the third, and probably as Catherine pointed out, really my call to action for you all is, if you haven't adopted any digital literacy or AI literacy foundations for your students or for your community, I really encourage you not only to look at Common Sense's resources, but to attempt to adopt some resources or attempt to adopt an initiative that teaches your students how to actually use these tools. As Christina pointed out at the very beginning, being aware of not only predators, but also how that those predators are accessing tools like roadblocks is really critical for students to understand. I know you all are on the call to know that. So let's get into it just so you sort of know. How would I summarize what I just said in sort of 3 bullet points in a guideline for you? If you are in the process of revising or creating some type of guideline for your staff, here are probably the 3 core themes that I would highlight for yourself. And again, I apologize if I sound so preachy. I'm just so passionate about not AI, but how it impacts teachers and families and students. The first, as many of you have already started to point out, the hope here is that we outline some very specific guidelines about the benefits and risks. You know, many of us have been talking about ethics, but I would really get a little granular and come up with a 1-sentence statement to say, why is it that we at Pomona or LA Co or San Diego, why should we actually be using it in the first place? The second is, how does it actually work? This is where I keep sort of sharing some basic foundational tools about AI literacy. And then the third is, if you are not working closely with your IT departments, coming up with ways in which you are vetting the tools that are coming your way. So whether it's Copilot or other tools, the hope here is that you can actually build a why. You can have some framing or rubric as to how to assess those tools. Let's get into it just so you understand sort of what I mean in case studies here. With respect to the industry, what we're seeing is not students. We know that there's an assumption students are already using tools like ChatGPT or other generative AI tools, but what we're seeing is that these trends are actually aiming more to support students' overall well-being. And so we see tools like Friend AI. We see tools that are actually regular tools that are being used for things like resume building. So the idea here, the call here is to sort of start to understand how and when students use them. We at Common Sense continue to see a trend where students are accessing things like ChatGPT outside of their homework and schoolwork to do things like engage in resume building or some other stuff. Let me give you some additional trends just so you are aware. Recently, we came up with this research about how young people are using AI. I highly encourage you to go through the research if you have time, but I want to just share one slide that I think summarizes what I just finished sharing. Again, we know that about 53%, a little over 50% of the students that we surveyed said that they use generative AI tools to get information. What I want to point your attention to is at the very bottom, right, which is the 17% that is getting help with their jobs, or the 16% that it's actually increasing to think about using sound or music. There's also an increase in uptick in the number of students that are using generative AI tools to enhance pictures or use images. So while again, I think students are often leaning to these tools for assistance on their homework, I think it's very important to kind of note and start to align your policies to the trends. So what does that actually mean, Jamie? What I would really encourage is, as you develop your tools or your policies, to regularly think about when and how you want to amend them. So maybe you want a cadence where you're looking at them every 6 months. Maybe you want to create a committee, if you haven't already done so, where you're regularly looking at the trends in AI and seeing whether or not it's actually meeting the actual realities to how your students are using these tools. It's an encouragement here to do that. If you are on the call and you're like, Jamie, I'm a teacher, I know nothing about acceptable use policies or any policies, we got you covered. So we partnered with the F3 law firm, and we've created a number of templates for you to both use with your families as well as with your students. I know a number of organizations have partnered with this agency, but I think I share this slide in particular because I think it's important to inform our families, if you are going to be using a generative AI tool, where you think your teachers or you yourself might be sharing information about your students informally. I think that is, again, that's entirely up to you, but I'd take a look at some of these resources. I'll quickly gloss over our lessons. I think they're great, mostly because I work for Common Sense, but they are great because they really talk about the foundations for using AI. Again, we assess things like how AI works, how AI is actually trained, and look closely at actually the nuances of generative AI tools like facial recognitions or AI and algorithms in particular. Again, these are intended for students that are in 5th grade on, but the hope here is that you can at least take one of our lessons and adopt them before you start to engage both your teachers and your community with AI as a whole. All right, I've just spoken at you like at 1,000,000 miles an hour. I'm going to slow the hell down, so pardon everyone for using that language, but sometimes we just need to breathe, right? Like sometimes we want to meet the needs of whatever technologies our way. But when I'm on these calls as both a participant as a facilitator, I want some practical, tangible takeaway. Now, if I can give you just one, I would probably say to do this. I would look at the current sort of way in which you are framing your narrative around AI and simply create a one-pager, an overview of what exactly do you mean in your community. And what I've done for you is I've included this one-pager to outline your actual vision, the guidelines for usage, and also a specific timeline in which you can actually adopt these. And most of you are like, nobody has time for that. And so I've actually created a document for you that actually provides you an example of what that looks like. So if you are a school teacher on the call or you're an administrator on the call, my biggest call to action is just level set. Make sure that everyone understands not only the terminology, but how it is that you're thinking about adopting these tools both in the classroom and across your your community. So let me just close in the last sort of 30 seconds with some examples that I'm seeing across the field. I think many of you, if you're in Southern California or even parts of California, see the impact that these school districts are making. But the first is I want to really highlight the work coming out of San Ramon Valley Unified. They've built principles both on ensuring that they're protecting student privacy, as well as ensuring that they are supporting their teachers and understanding how AI is actually used for deeper learning. So I encourage you to look at their guidelines. It's a really great way in which they blend both AI literacy and some of those principles that we outlined. The second is some of the work coming out, excuse me, some of the work coming out of Santa Ana Unified School District. I really love their policies in that they not only focus both on AI literacy, but they're working on really practical resources for teachers. I mean, just the work and the fact that they've been able to communicate both with families as well as teachers around the work that they're doing is just remarkable. It's amazing. So I encourage you to sort of look at how they structure both teacher training as well as foundational usage for students. And then the final one that I want to share is just one that I particularly like. This is at a Peninsula School District. I really love how they've outlined and they provide a sample classroom policy. This is one of the very few school districts that I've seen thus far where they are applying their acceptable use policies at a classroom level. So I encourage you, if you take a look at this slide, to see how it is that they've actually done it. I think it's a very powerful way in which to make the point around level setting much clearer for folks. Finally, if you haven't already, one of the best ways to support your teachers is to ensure that they are aware of not only the ethical usage, but how to actually use AI for their own planning and engagement. So there's quite a bit of content out there, but I encourage you to take a look at our AI Foundation course for educators. It's about a 30 to 45-minute self-paced course. And even if you don't actually adopt it as a classroom teacher, it's really great to get tidbits of how Common Sense is seeing AI and its impact on students. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mike Lawrence, and let me just stop sharing my screen and smile at you all for the time that you spent listening to me. So
yes, thank you. I appreciate that you not only showed a lot of resources, the AI literacy lessons are great, as well as some of the other resources, but you also gave some examples from districts. And so we always want to make sure that we do that as well. And so we're fortunate to hear from Mike Lawrence, who is with ABC Unified School District. So Mike, if you want to, thanks for being with us. And if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and get started, go ahead.
You bet. Thanks so much. I feel honored to follow such excellence. This is a great crew you've assembled here, and it's fun to be among friends like Christina and Ellen and others that I know, Antonio on the call. So great to be here. I'm Mike Lawrence. As you mentioned, I'm Director of Information and Technology here at ABC Unified, which is in fact a real district. I just want to say, I know that there are many out there that think that it's like dummy data that was installed and someone left it in the state information systems, but it's a real district. It's here in Cerritos, California, and A stands for Artesia, and B actually stands for Bloomfield, and C stands for Carmenita, which is 3 districts that merged in 1965. So not Bellflower and Cerritos like everybody thinks the B and C stands for, but happy to be here and thrilled to share our journey. I feel like it's a perfect setup too, with the first 2 presenters sort of giving these foundations, and I'm here to share sort of what we've been able to do and follow a lot of those guidance documents that were mentioned in some of the thinking around that we're doing here. My background, if you don't know me, I was a teacher, and then I spent several years at a county office of education, and then the bulk of my career in ed tech was spent as executive director and then CEO of a little nonprofit called Q, Computer Using Educators, where I got the opportunity and honor to meet and work alongside awesome educators every day, all day. So I did that for several years, and went into vendor world, got to be on the side that helped build all those tools that we are using as educators. And that gave me a lot of great perspective. So I bring all of that experience to my new role. I started in April here at ABC Unified. And what's really cool about the work at ABC Unified is this is our 3rd year working on AI as a district. We've been diving in since the beginning of it all. And a large chunk of the credit goes to this guy, Mr. Chad Lanes. We call him Mr. Lanes. and he's our AI program specialist at ABC. I have to be careful saying AI program specialist because he is actually human. He's not an AI program specialist. He's just a program specialist in AI. We're still working on that. A long-serving educator, 27 years at Fedi Academy, 34 years total, and he turned wow into how. And I added in this from his desk. I took this picture. It's everything is figure-outable. That is one of his most common phrases. And you'll see these badges throughout. I'm going to explain those a little later, but notice that this one has a little human head in there, and I'll come back to that. So our philosophy at ABC Unified is we believe that humans will never be replaced, that teaching and education is itself a human endeavor. And so we value educators and we equip them with tools and AI to improve. And so we coined this phrase, really, Mr. Lanes coined the phrase HI plus AI. I was a little disappointed to find out that it did not involve a trip to Hawaii. But it's human intelligence, HI, and AI, artificial intelligence. And the way I compare it for folks is that, you know how motion pictures are called motion pictures, but we know that it's actually not motion, right? Those are just film strips, or now it's digital, of course, but they move so quickly the human eye can't distinguish between individual frames, and so our brain is tricked into seeing motion. In many ways, I feel that that's a useful analogy to think of when talking about artificial intelligence, is that it's leveraging the data at its fingertips and its database so swiftly and so cleverly that it's representing itself as intelligence. So I think it's always good to remind ourselves of that. And it takes that human touch, the empathy for us as educators to really use it effectively. So many of you talked about policies. And so I'm proud to share what we did when we looked at our existing responsible use plan was we found that it was mostly discussing behaviors. And by and large, those behaviors were the same behaviors before AI and the same behaviors after AI that we wanted to see in our students and our staff. So we didn't really feel that we needed to completely revamp our responsible use agreement. And so instead, we landed on this addendum, because we wanted to point out that AI does change the game. AI is ubiquitous. AI is powerful in ways that technology has not yet really been. And so we created this addendum, and it has these 6 key behaviors. I'm old enough to remember the big 6 in information literacy, so I'm thrilled that we ended up with 6 key behaviors that we saw. And so you can see them detailed here. I won't read them. It's available on our website, and I'll drop the link into the chat when I finish here. But the first 2 are respect and integrity. And then we get into the next 4, the final 4, attribution, privacy. Critical thinking obviously is essential in this circumstance. And one piece I'll add to what my colleagues have shared already is that when dealing with AI, often the issue isn't so much whether students are using AI or not using AI, it's whether they know they're using AI. And we'll talk about that a little later too when I get to the badges. But one of the things we intend to do is help our students and staff learn how to see when AI is involved. There are now results that are presented to me when I do a search, and it's an AI result. Now, if I weren't a savvy user, if I didn't look carefully, I might just think that was human-generated result to my search and copy, paste, and move on with my life without recognizing that I need to add an extra layer of review and editorial perspective to make sure that I agree with that answer and that answer is valid, or check the sources. Where was that AI answer coming from? Maybe scroll down a little further and check to see if it lines up with what the other more organic results are showing. So that's just one example that we found. And so this is the document we put out in English and Spanish for our community. Now, here's where I was talking about those badges. So I'll get to them in a second, but we created a 44-page guidance document, and you could see it at this web address. This is the one I was talking about that had those the English and Spanish addendi, and they are available at our URL/AI, appropriately enough. And then it also remains open. We created a process so that parents and community members and any other adults and students that wanted to contribute and say, here's my thought, here's what I wonder, here's where I'm afraid, they could provide that feedback to us. And what we did is we hosted a series of roundtables and we continue to host them quarterly, where we hear that in person. We share those concerns and those questions and that feedback in person, and we get even more feedback. We did one of those 5 online. And then what we did is we took that feedback to heart. We made new resources. We made some changes to the guidance document based on that feedback. And then one by one, we responded to every post that was given to us by a member of the community to give them a sense of, A, you've been heard, and B, here's our thought on that particular concern. Some of them were wide ranging, and it was a wonderful exercise to see how they sort of went through the process. Sometimes in one comment, they started with, I'm afraid, I think this is wrong. And they ended up landing on the, but you know what? I really am glad that you guys are educating my child so that they're prepared for an AI-infused world. Even though I may be concerned and scared about it, I'm glad that, you know, educational professionals are looking at this instead of sticking their heads in the sand. So it was really exciting to see some of them actually went through the full scope of emotions in one response. And then to those badges, I wanted to get to these. These were created by John Spike. He's an educator out of Wisconsin. He posted them as an open source project. So if you want, you can go to that address or Google attribution for AI, and you'll find them. And you could download them. You could customize them. I actually reached out to him, A, to thank him, and B, to ask if I could customize them and use them here at ABC. And he enthusiastically said yes. What we're doing here is we're asking staff and students, when you publish something, whether it be a lesson or your work that you're turning in for an assignment, you attach one of these badges to it. And that way we know as educators how AI was involved. Was it something you created and then you used AI to improve it? Was it something AI created and then you edited it? Just let us know. And it starts the conversation. Instead of making AI taboo and, oh boy, I don't want my teacher to know I use this. It starts the conversation instead of stopping it. We're actually going to enhance this further. We're working with Laguna Beach Unified, and they're actually working right now on a tool to add even more information. So just like you know, and these are very reminiscent of Creative Commons. You might recognize that sort of style. But in Creative Commons, there's a way to actually attach even more information to the copyright that you're claiming some copyright on. Here, we're going to have some way of doing that and generating it on the fly per assignment. So if a teacher says, look, you can use AI on this assignment, but only in these ways, it will then attach it when it goes out to the students as an assignment. And then the students likewise could respond and say, okay, teacher, I used the AI in this way, as you said was okay, and send that back using this tool. So pretty excited about that. They're available. You could go to our website or to John's website and download them. It's pretty exciting. We also created an AI guide just for students, and we missed the window to include the QR code in their printed, you know, planners that we pass out. So we got creative and we created stickers, and the students are able to stick those stickers on their planners, or we could put posters on the wall with this QR code, and it takes them to our student flavored guide for use of AI. I'm going to move quickly because I don't want to take too much time here, but we've got some great things that we did in the last year. This was our tech symposium we hosted last year with over 300 attendees. It was largely focused on AI. We launched an EdTech Hub website for our staff to go and get the latest, and it's meant to be a living document. We've told people that we're going to update those through the year. Here's some data on use of spaces created in school AI. That was one of the tools we adopted. And you can see it's a pretty nice trajectory of where it's going just from January to this last month, August and September. So it's exciting to see. And we also regularly gather our teachers together to curate best practices. We're incorporating it into our LCAP and MTSS. We're having administrators use AI. We're actually about to launch a trial of Claude, the team accounts among a small group of administrators that have volunteered for the effort. I swear I didn't volunteer them. I asked who wants to be involved, and a few of them raised their hands. You could see Chad again in there doing some training for classified staff. Often they are left out of the training wheel, and we are proud to say that we really involve them in this process. And we're doing another training with them in 2 weeks. So excited about that. I've already mentioned what we did here with our community partner feedback, but have it in here as well. We also involved our union leadership to make sure that they were part of the conversation and part of this transparency and inclusivity. And then more pictures. I think, Ellen, you might recognize a colleague there in that picture. That's Dr. Christopher Hang from LACO. He came out, shared his expertise. Some of you may not notice him from his profile, but that's Glenn Warren there. He's from Laguna Beach, and he's got some deep history in information literacy and an amazing jazz pianist, if you've never heard him play piano. Some guy in a vest over here. I don't know what's going on with that guy. We have new platforms that we've rolled out to the staff, and we vet them for data privacy and security, of course. We are constantly looking at that to make sure that we are not putting our student PII into a place where it shouldn't, and it's not feeding and training AI in the future. Last two slides, I promise. So I always want to know, what are other districts using? So to satisfy your curiosity, these are the 4 that our teacher group and administrative groups chose for this year. And it's a constant question. We're evaluating these, and these are the ones that we adopted for this year, and we're analyzing their use. So I'll move beyond that. And then just wanted to make sure you all know that we've got some exciting things coming. We just announced this week our tech symposium this year is being rebranded as Ignite, and it's going to be in January. We're going to invite our friends at LACO and QLA and a whole bunch of other places to come join us there. It's going to be pretty exciting. We're going to see if we can ignite some things. The slogan, I'm told, is "Winter is coming," because it's Winter PL is the name of it. But thanks for having me on. Happy to share more. This is a picture of Laguna Beach Unified, where we took my IT team down to meet with Mike Morrison's IT team. If anyone knows Mike Morrison, amazing ed tech leader. And we're actually in the process of being featured next month, actually November, in Leadership Magazine at AXA in terms of the work that we're doing with the ABCs of AI. We're playing with the name there a bit. But thank you for the time. I'm happy to stick around and answer questions, and I'll drop some URLs in the chat.
Thank you so much, Mike. I love, I think this was a great format, the order of today's speakers, because we started with the tool and the industry and what are they thinking about to help protect us and our students. And then we moved into some resources for that. And then examples from you, Mike, of this is what we actually did. And love to see the involvement of the students, the families, the classified staff, the union. I think those groups are often not involved in some of these discussions. So great to see that. Thank you so much to all of you, to Karam and to Jamie and to Mike. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here again. If anyone has any wonderings or questions for any of our speakers, or for Christina and myself, feel free to ask in the chat. Yeah, this has been a great, I think this has gone really well. Christina, do you have some more ideas that you can share with your kids now after listening to some of this?
I'm ready for an experiential learning field trip to go visit everybody. Because really, who else to learn from than, actually going to visit the experts? So
Very, very true. Very true. Absolutely. Yes, we so appreciate you. I did want to point out too that you may have noticed that when Karam was talking about Copilot, there was a little note that says not for those under 18, right? And that when Jamie was talking about students, he was talking about making sure that we teach them about all these tools. And Mike was talking about those some of those tools that are, FERPA and COPA compliant. So we do want our educators and our students utilizing these tools, but remember, we do need to make sure that whatever it is that we are using is done so in a FERPA COPA compliant manner, so to speak. So definitely appreciate that. Looks like Christina, you're being invited to visit. Excellent, I love it. So this is great. Wanted to also let you all know that all registrants are going to be sent an email containing links to the CDE AI resources, a link to this presentation, resources that were mentioned, and a feedback form, actually, and a recording once that's ready will also be sent to you. So if you feel like you missed something, you want to share this with a colleague, please feel free to do so. We also included in that there's going to be a survey so that you can let us know what you are doing in your district about AI, so that we can really kind of get a feel at the department of what it is that we can do to support you. Okay, so I think this question is for you, Mike. What types of direction or resources do the classified employees get?
It's a great question. We provide regular professional learning for classified. In fact, today they had professional learning, and in 2 weeks, we're going to have another one that is a combination of directors with their classified representative, their teammates, basically. And that one, they specifically asked for instruction on PDF and how to manage those. So less AI and more productivity focused. But the requests that come in specific to AI are productivity more often than not, rather than obviously curricular. But to a degree, they come in with creative requests as well, like how they can create graphics or imagery, and what are the district's sort of standards. We have a design book or a branding book, if you will, and so we provide those resources to them as well. There's a great organization here that that represents them from a union standpoint, and then there's a group of people that get together regularly to request training and say, hey, here's what we've agreed we would really love to get more training on and resources on. So that also includes the school sites. I know I'm sort of biased because I sit at the district office, but it includes the school site classified staff as well. And whenever possible, we go out and invite them in when we're there to do training on topics at school sites. So it's one of the things that we pride ourselves on. It actually comes out of our focus this year, which is a book that our superintendent has asked everyone to read called Trust and Inspire. And in that, it calls out specifically how often there are groups of people in your organization that are left out and not considered because they aren't necessarily in those leadership roles, the highly visible leadership roles, but they're the ones doing the heavy lift. They're the ones doing that work. So she took that personally and said, you know what, we need to do a better job. And so that was her call to all of us as administrators and to our educators in the district to incorporate and include the classified staff when we're offering training. So I hope I answered the question in terms of what kinds.
Yeah, thank you for that. Also wanted to point out, it's always great to have more resources to look at. So thank you to Raisha for dropping in resources for the classroom for students and also for educators, because we are living in this world, many of us, and understand the data privacy risks and such, but many of those that we serve may not. And so really appreciate those resources, Common Sense's resources. There's a lot of great things out there. So thank you for that. Okay, so I think all right, perfect. Well, I appreciate all of you. I appreciate our speakers, but also all of you that are here. It is great to have you with us. We will continue the webinar series in October, so keep an eye out on social media, on the CDE social media channels, as well as the CDE Today, if you're subscribed to that. And if you are interested in computer science, which is the under the hood portion, so to speak, of AI, which I am very passionate about, I would invite you to subscribe to the listserv. So definitely something that I want to let you know is available. And lastly, I just want to thank all of you for all that you do, and know that there will be that survey coming out so that we can find out if there are additional topics in regards to AI that you are wondering about, because we are here to serve you. So thank you so much. Thank you to all of our speakers, to Karam and Jamie and Mike, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.